Volta sarà cura della dottoranda Enrica Lovaglio, una mia cara collega che è californiana, che ci parlerà di virtual reality for social change, e il suo ospite Mengyu Chen ci parlerà di alcune applicazioni sempre nell'ambito della virtual reality. E visto che siamo un po' lunghi, non voglio rubare altro tempo per i convenevoli e passo subito la parola ad Enrica, che introdurrà il suo tema.
Grazie, sono Enrica Lovaglio, sono italiana, non sono californiana, al momento vivo in California, ma sono fiera di essere italiana, per cui non mi chiamate californiana, vi prego. Sono felicissima di parlare della VR e soprattutto perché sia io sia il mio ospite parliamo della VR a livello di storytelling, creare delle storie nella realtà virtuale che hanno un significato particolare. Allora andiamo a vedere il significato, condivido il mio schermo. Io come dicevo prima, lo vedete il mio schermo o no? Arriva. Come dicevo prima, io ho un ospite
Sta
che
caricando, sì, lo vediamo.
Lo vedete adesso?
Sì, sì.
Ok, scusate, è difficile capire da qui. Come dicevo, ho un ospite che arriva fra breve, per cui io pensavo di fare per adesso una carrellata veloce sulla mia ricerca, dandovi praticamente semplicemente un sommario. Poi alle 8:30 o 5:30 da voi giriamo tutto in inglese. Abbiamo Mengyu che ci fa vedere il suo lavoro, è un progettista in gambissimo che lavora soprattutto sulla virtualità, sulla realtà virtuale. E dopodiché ci saranno domande che siano in inglese o in italiano, non importa. Se volete fare le domande in italiano, io sono felicissima di tradurre. VR, Storytelling for Social Change. E la mia ricerca si articola su 4 settori. Intanto a me interessa la virtualità, la realtà virtuale per l'uso a livello riabilitativo dell'essere umano, a livello di comportamenti, di decisioni, di percezioni. Ed è una realtà virtuale quella che interessa a me, quindi per un cambiamento a livello anche sociale. Ovviamente magari un po' ambizioso pensare di poter cambiare il mondo, però bisogna sempre un po' provarci. Quello che la parte iniziale della ricerca si focalizza sulla visual culture, sulla cultura visiva e come la cultura visiva a cui siamo esposti continuamente, perché comunque con i media, con i mass media abbiamo milioni di immagini al giorno che sono lanciate ai nostri occhi, quanto di queste immagini contribuisce alla creazione della discriminazione razziale. Un'altra cosa che contribuisce è le tecnologie che sono programmate proprio per creare delle divisioni, quindi si chiama biased technology. E questi sono quello che io definirei 2 problemi principali a livello di influenza sull'uomo, perché vedremo fra poco come il razzismo è una cosa che si vede soprattutto a livello, che si ritiene soprattutto a livello di inconscio, però viene formato dall'educazione, dalla cultura e anche ovviamente dalla cultura visiva e da queste tecnologie che hanno nascoste tanti problemi a livello di divisioni a livello sociale. Quello che vorrei proporre io è ovviamente usare la realtà virtuale e la narrativa a livello immersiva, cioè raccontare delle storie interattive e immersive che ci possano rifar ripensare i nostri comportamenti o le nostre predisposizioni, attitudini che sono, come dico io, spesso e volentieri inconsce, quindi devono essere portate alla superficie e c'è una storia a livello di virtualità, di VR, che ha la capacità di veramente, non dico guarire, però trattare tanti problemi a livello di inconscio, dai traumi alla paura delle altezze, viene usata per il training degli atleti, della polizia. La virtualità è usata per tanti settori che usano l'inconscio come anche la riabilitazione di un comportamento umano. La cosa che è un po' problematica a livello di VR per questa applicazione è che non esiste per adesso molto a livello di design. Cioè tutto questo mondo del VR per il comportamento e per il benessere dell'uomo è stata fatta principalmente da psicologi e informatici. Quindi io quello che cerco di proporre è che il designer e l'artista diventi una componente uguale almeno a quella degli psicologi e dei computer science. Faccio una cosa velocissima qui, volevo far vedere come ci sono tantissimi libri che sono usciti negli ultimi 2 o 3 anni che documentano questi problemi. Cioè c'è ovviamente una tensione, una pressione per cercare di risolvere Algorithm of Oppression, è uno dei libri molto più bellissimi che spiega benissimo come la tecnologia a livello di programmazione crea queste divisioni. Una cosa voglio far vedere velocemente, è quello a destra in alto, è quest'uomo che è stato accusato di aver fatto un crimine e portato in galera per via di un algoritmo che ha ovviamente fatto un facial recognition sbagliato. A sinistra c'è un documentario che fa vedere come per le persone di colore il facial recognition è talmente problematico che è più facile se mettono una maschera davanti alla propria faccia a livello di di facial recognition. Questi sono libri che ho letto recentemente, tutti focalizzati a questo. Notate la pubblicazione 2020, 2020, 2019, 2018, cioè c'è veramente una grande tensione a questo momento per risolvere questi problemi. Sapete cosa sta succedendo negli Stati Uniti col Black Lives Matter e il police brutality, eccetera, eccetera. Queste immagini fanno vedere semplicemente come questi problemi nascono nell'inconscio. C'è un ricercatore in particolare che si chiama John Bargh che ci fa vedere che anche a livello di cervello, la parte davanti, il prefrontal cortex, che è quella che fa le decisioni, è molto rimossa, è lontana dalla parte del cervello che ci permette di attivare le nostre azioni. Come dire che tanto spesso e volentieri le nostre azioni sono attivate non dalla parte conscia ma dalla parte inconscia. Questo è uno schema che ci fa vedere come funziona il nostro cervello a livello di percezione, come gli stimoli esterni, la cultura entra nel nostro cervello e il cervello poi fa delle predizioni su quello che può succedere successivamente e le decisioni sono tutte basate su queste predizioni. Questi sono due psicologi che hanno fatto degli studi bellissimi negli anni 40 con un migliaio di bimbi neri a cui hanno fatto vedere ci sono tanti esperimenti, ma uno famosissimo è il doll experiment, in cui gli facevano vedere una bambola bianca e una nera e chiedevano domande del tipo qual è che è quella bella? E il bimbetto nero diceva la bianca, qual è quella cattiva? E il bimbetto nero diceva la nera. Come dire, c'era già a livello di 3 anni, i bambini hanno già questi schemi mentali, che è molto molto triste. Ovviamente questa VR for Good è quello su cui mi focalizzo, ci sono personaggi molto importanti che hanno creato questa VR for Good dagli anni 90. Cosa vuol dire? Vuol dire che sono personaggi che hanno creato delle simulazioni per studiare i comportamenti umani, esponendo gli uomini nella virtualità, i partecipanti nella virtualità, a delle situazioni in cui c'era o del razzismo o della discriminazione di vari tipi. Questi sono i main players, i primary players, i personaggi che gestiscono ancora adesso questo settore. Come vedete, sono quasi tutti psicologi o informatici e quasi tutti uomini. Quindi gli artisti sono molto meno che gli altri. Questi sono gli artisti, per quanto Jeremy Benenson è uno psicologo, ma si allea con tanti artisti per fare delle simulazioni che hanno qualcosa d'arte, non lo direi proprio arte, ve le farò vedere qualcosa fra breve. Artisti ce ne sono pochissimi. Chris Milk e Noni della Pegna hanno un background in fotografia e videografia e hanno fatto tantissimi documentari. Questi due di solito però fanno cose che hanno sempre video. A volte hanno un pochino di CGI, di modellazione tridimensionale, ma è sempre basata sulla realtà. Tutte queste persone che vediamo hanno creato esperienze che sono tutte fotorealistiche, che secondo me è il problema. Questo vado velocissimo, questo fa vedere la visual culture dal passato al presente e come c'è sempre una divisione tra donne e uomini, neri e bianchi, eccetera, eccetera. Notate che questo è abbastanza recente, è uscito 5 anni fa, appena è uscito l'hanno rimosso perché hanno visto ovviamente per fortuna che c'era una componente di razzismo. E quindi queste sono un po' queste sono esperienze invece virtuali. A sinistra in alto è quella di Jeremy Bailenson e come vedete, guardate questo modello tridimensionale come è come si dice, stiff, rigido, gli occhi sono fissi. Io ho fatto questa esperienza virtuale ed era abbastanza penosa, tra virgolette, per quanto ovviamente questo Jeremy Bellinson è famosissimo e ci hanno messo una marea di soldi per farla, però per qualche motivo spesso e volentieri questo fotorealismo diventa, secondo me, un grande problema a livello di virtualità. Questa è una bellissima esperienza, si chiama Injustice, è tutta basata sul video, però il video viene processato in vari parti soltanto. Nella parte dei dialoghi c'è questo filtro che che lo rende più come dice, painterly, come fosse un dipinto. Questa è un'esperienza che si chiama Carne e Arena, che penso sia venuta in Italia anche, di Alejandro Inarritu, che è la storia dell'attraversamento del deserto per arrivare alla frontiera americana per un immigrante, per un messicano, mi sembra. Questa è la Noemi della Peña, che è quello che diceva che faceva questi documentari, quasi tutti sono video. Ovviamente anche questo in realtà è CGI, è fatto con la modellazione, ma di nuovo è tutto fotorealistico. Fotorealistico vuol dire che c'è questo problema grandissimo che si chiama l'Uncanny Valley. Pensate alle statue di cera. Le statue di cera, quando le vedi, come ti danno questo senso di come fossero morte, per cui c'è questo problema molto molto serio nel fotorealismo e non so perché si continua a fare cose fotorealistiche. Qui parlo come progettare caratteri per la virtualità, per evitare questo uncanny valley, da cercare di assicurarsi che gli occhi non siano morti, come dicevo prima, che ci sia il tracking delle pupille, di cercare di creare dei personaggi stilizzati, e di cercare di fare molta attenzione quando c'è un'interazione tra due persone in cui c'è una prossimità, cioè la distanza è molto molto vicina, perché è importante. Questo è uno studio bellissimo, fatto benissimo, in cui hanno ovviamente una cosa un umano molto realistico, dal molto realistico che è il Human HQ2 in basso, a ovviamente quello Toon Pencil che è molto stilizzato. Quelli che hanno, dopo tantissimi personaggi che hanno testato, sia con una virtualità in cui la persona non si muoveva, il carattere non si muoveva e invece anche si muoveva, hanno scoperto che il Toon Shaded e il Toon CG in realtà sono quelli che sono risultati più friendly e più trustworthy. Questo ti dimostra che questo fotorealismo non è neanche necessario. Qui parlo al VR storytelling e come è importante pensare alla identità, alla costruzione dell'identità, del carattere della vostra storia. Purtroppo non ho tanto tempo perché Mengyu arriva fra 4 minuti, per cui vi ovviamente distribuirò questa presentazione. Qui parlo della differenza tra perspective taking, empathy and sympathy, perché ricordate che stiamo parlando di cercare di generare delle storie che ti generano delle emozioni verso altri. Quindi qual è la differenza tra avere la prospettiva dell'altro, avere l'empatia che ti vuole far aiutare l'altro, o avere la simpatia in cui sì, vedi il dolore dell'altra persona ma non vuoi partecipare, non vuoi aiutare. Che cosa possiamo fare in VR? Ci sono tantissime innovazioni che dobbiamo apportare e la prova è che il VR è nato negli anni 60, ma siamo ancora qui che cerchiamo di farlo diventare un medium che è accettato, perché al di là dei videogame e di applicazioni commerciali tipo l'immobiliare, i musei che ci ha fatto vedere Manuel, il VR non è comunque un medium completamente usato alla full potential, non so come si dice in italiano, però qui parlo di cercare di innovare il design dei personaggi, ampliare l'inclusione sensoriale, creare una relazione tra il mondo virtuale e quello fisico, inventare delle transizioni, penso a Méliès e le transizioni che ha inventato con gli anni, dobbiamo avere un altro Méliès nell'epoca moderna, e cercare di ovviamente creare delle storie in cui ci sono delle associazioni positive per ridurre i pregiudizi razziali. Tutto ciò, se ci pensi, ha a che fare con il design, con una persona che è l'artista designer che deve essere comunque coinvolto nella creazione di questi mondi virtuali. Questo è un esperimento un po' fallito che ho fatto, in cui ho creato una situazione, un prototipo in VR, in un supermercatino in cui una cassiera tratta malissimo una mamma e un bambino, e c'è un bystander, che è questo carattere qui, che può agire o no. Ci ho messo una vita a farlo. Ovviamente ho iniziato sul fotorealistico, l'ho testato sia sul fotorealistico sia sul artistico, cioè ho iniziato sul fotorealistico e poi ho usato un algoritmo per render tutto sulla più artistico, come fosse stato disegnato. La ragione per cui secondo me è fallito, perché comunque era una storia molto molto triste. Ho capito che per me è difficile inventarsi le storie, per cui ho deciso di fare questo esperimento stranissimo in cui da settembre insegno storytelling in una prigione di giovanile, 14 a 17 anni sono i prigionieri, e vedo, praticamente creo una collaborazione tra questi ragazzi e quelli al di fuori che sono appena laureati dall'Università di Cal Poly e non hanno ancora trovato lavoro, e questi due gruppi interagiscono e praticamente inventano delle storie da realizzare nel mondo virtuale. Per cui io sarò un po' la direttrice di questo esperimento strano, cercando di trovare una maniera per inventare delle storie che abbiano un significato profondo e che agiscono su una audience che è molto giovane, perché poi mi interessa comunque creare qualcosa dalle scuole medie al liceo, tra virgolette. Questo qui è il mio ospite che dovrebbe arrivare fra un minuto, e aspetto un attimino per introdurlo. Intanto cerco di interrompere lo screen sharing e vedere se qualcuno ha...
Credo che Mengyu è arrivato.
Greetings.
Mengyu, are you there?
Yeah.
Are you there, Mengyu?
Yes, I think the internet is a bit delayed.
Oh, hi! I'm so happy you're here. Sorry, you might have caught me talking Italian.
Yeah, it's okay.
Welcome.
I was presenting. Welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
But I was presenting a little bit what I've been doing. I've been researching, and I was really looking forward to. You might have seen our last slide. I don't know if you still see it. Is you, and I would love to introduce Mengyu. I was very lucky to meet him. I spent a year taking classes in UCSB, and Mengyu was the true guru, I would say, the very amazing expert behind the classes of an incredible faculty and man called Marcos Novak. Some of you might remember Marcos Novak. He wrote incredible books and was very active. I don't know if he still is in Italy, but he is very active in the United States and doing incredible work. So we the student had Mengyu to ask for help, to, you know, if you needed to be saved, definitely he was the man to go to. And I got to know his patience, his talent, and whenever I needed to make this presentation, I felt like, who's the person you would love to talk the most with? And I couldn't help it to think of him. So I'm very, very happy he accepted our invitation. He is an artist, researcher, developer that is pushing technology to understand how it affects human behavior and the perception of society. So he also is very interested in storytelling, and he, just like me, is interested in how does it affect humans in terms of behavior and perceptions. He has a master's degree in digital media at the Rhode Island School of Design. I was saying RISD, but then I realized Italians might not know what RISD is. It's one of the most amazing schools of design out there. And right now he is a PhD candidate at the Media Arts and Technology in the University of California, Santa Barbara. That is where I obtained my master's in 2002. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let him take the talk and show his incredible work. It's all yours, Mengyu.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction. It's very nice. I think my internet here is maybe some kind of there's some latency. So maybe if sometimes just because I wasn't able to kind of have a very kind of a clear kind of connection. Seems like I couldn't really hear everything clearly. So just let me know if anything that's you want me to repeat or anything.
Yes.
Yeah, you want me to show again or talk again. Yeah. I'm gonna kind of share my screen and present mode. Just give me a second.
Excuse me, Mr. Chen. Maybe you
Yes.
can switch for a moment your video off, and maybe the connection will be better for your audio. We could try. If you're okay with
switch
it.
my viewing. Yeah, I can turn off my camera.
Sometimes
and
yeah, if you turn off the camera, it might help. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And let me present a window. PowerPoint slideshow. Okay. Okay, I'm presenting my screen. If any,
Yes.
Can you all see my screen? Okay.
Yes, we do.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna start. So I've been kind of so my kind of a major. I think Enrica introduced me pretty well, so I'm not gonna repeat it again. But my major kind of research focus is on computational storytelling in virtual and augmented reality. And as an artist and designer and also a developer, I mostly kind of I create a kind of experience that's kind of that's kind of interesting and interactive, and can kind of bring up some kind of interesting kind of reflections about our society and virtual reality, and be able to kind of make their own kind of stories. I think it's kind of important that we should let people from their own community and then speak up to tell stories. Also try to kind of promote creativity, not just let them kind of tell stories, but also try to let people create new forms of experience in their own way. So I will start with this, my kind of motivation of my kind of research. Is it kind of not clear?
It is. There's a little bit of buzzing here and there, but I think right now it was actually pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, kind of. I think the network is not very kind of good today.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I continue? Or, I think if there's anything kind of clear, we can leave questions in the chat. I can also see. So yeah, anytime, like you can also interrupt me if the audio goes bad.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing I think why it's kind of stories is important to me, because I started as a kind of artist and I studied kind of art history, that I think a lot of times I found interesting that people start to look at different kind of narratives and the stories from like photographs happening in the past. They try to kind of know about what kind of social pictures it was inside those kind of things. One thing that strikes me was happened and destroyed the nuclear kind of power plant. So that was kind of something that strikes me. I thought it was a very kind of a particular moment that when technology and humanity kind of had a strong kind of collision that affected a lot of people, and the entire kind of humanity was kind of shaken by this this event. I mean, the same thing, similar things wasn't happening for the first time that a huge kind of a nuclear disaster happened. So I think that's a very kind of important subject to people. So I took lots of photos, but I found also that wasn't very enough, because the disaster just happened, and but still people couldn't really recover. I was there after, and the place was remained as it was the same day on the disaster. A lot of kind of destroyed kind of houses, destroyed kind of farms, lots of cars abandoned, which is kind of fair that they're not going to come back anymore. So I was thinking like what kind of stories for the future generation, and also like as an artist and designer, I always have this kind of idea: technology can be used as a kind of weapon. I mean, weapon is a bit exaggerated, but it's something that I'm thinking of to use as a counterforce to support humanity. Instead of like these days technologies are being kind of used against humanity. Lots of large corporations, governments, they buy technologies to just maximize their profits, or to create more kind of to increase the gap between the rich and the poor. So that's something I'm thinking as an artist. We can use technology as something to tell people what's happening. So I started to create this kind of virtual reality experience that I think it's also an interesting kind of a way, because Fukushima was kind of so it was like a nuclear evacuation area that it wasn't kind of accessible to many people. Or I mean, even it was open, people were having this kind of fear to come back. So I created this kind of virtual kind of Fukushima in the VR headset, so people can actually come in and then explore. At the same time, as an artistic kind of practice, I put lots of kind of my own kind of understanding, my own memories into this space, and also putting lots of other people's voices, like interviews, statements by the local people, to tell the stories in a more kind of what's happening.
Mengyu, you're breaking down a little bit. We hear like chunks of silence, and then you start talking again, and we can tell that we missed a chunk. I don't know if you can do anything about it, though.
Yeah, I think the network is just, I don't have any other thing that's using the network, but I can repeat a bit of what I just said, maybe.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Chen, can I suggest you maybe to switch your microphone from your headphone to the one integrated to your laptop, if it's possible? Maybe it could be better.
I cannot.
Yeah.
I also missed that part.
Can you what they're asking is if you can get rid of the microphone you're using and just talk straight into the laptop and see if the microphone could be the problem.
Okay, I can switch device if you don't mind.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Mengyu.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry about this. Yeah, just give me a second, and I can. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's if it's something. Yeah. Let me turn.
So just while Mengyu is switching, he has an absolutely beautiful piece on his website called Fukushima that I wanted to ask a bunch of questions about. But he obviously, or at least when I met him, he was very much working on a VR project that we're recreating that experience, probably because it was quite traumatizing for him because he was so close. I know that was. Oh, sto parlando in inglese, scusate. Fukushima è stata una cosa molto traumatica per Mengyu, perché è una cosa che la ritrovate spesso nel suo lavoro. E per il mondo, mi ricordo, è stata una cosa incredibile, però per lui è andato sul sito a fare migliaia di fotografie, cioè ha veramente speso del tempo per ricreare in maniera virtuale l'esperienza di Fukushima. Vediamo se ritorna. Scusate per questi problemi tecnici.
Non ti preoccupare, Enrica, purtroppo succede. Se poi inviami magari qualche altro link così che posso...
Noemi ha mandato il link di Mengyu e io ovviamente potevo share the screen e far vedere alcuni dei suoi lavori.
Ok, puoi bellissimi... tanto, nell'attesa, se puoi raccontare intanto qualcosa mentre lui risolve il problema tecnico.
Se voi andate sul sito che ha non so se posso condividere lo schermo, perché se lo faccio mando via Mengyu dalla sua condivisione, vero? No?
Dopo lo riprende, non ti preoccupare.
Ok, allora proviamo. Condividi ora. Ok. Vediamo se trovo l'esempio.
Okay.
Se voi guardate sul sito di Mengyu, ha delle bellissime esperienze virtuali, veramente spettacolari. Parlo in inglese, così se si riconnette mi sente. Some of these experiences, this one is Fukushima, if you click on it, and all of them have incredible high quality videos on Vimeo, or Vimeo, I don't know how you pronounce it correctly in Italian, but this one is just absolutely incredible. And you'll see that he has this ability to switch between something very real, like this image at the top, and something more abstract, like the image at the bottom. He creates these hybrid worlds that are absolutely, I've not seen anyone else do it. And again, if you go under experiences, you'll find also some other fascinating one. Another one I really love is this one, because I'm really interested in measuring the biometrics, the heartbeat, all the basically vital signs of the person when you are in VR. And this one is something he created with another artist, and is another fascinating piece, because in this one in particular, the importance is not the space as much, but is the interaction between these two figures. So I think that is also another incredible piece that I encourage you to go see under. You see here, there are all these Vimeo links. I'm just not clicking on them because I'm hoping that Mengyu just comes back. I don't want to take too much of his time because he has a lot more interesting stories to tell than I do. Are you?
Can you hear me better this time?
Yes.
Great.
Mengyu.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I was showing your website while you were gone. I'm going to stop the presentation, my presentation, and look forward to yours. Thank you.
Okay, I can resume.
Okay, now the audio is okay, perfect. I think you could also switch on your camera if you want.
Okay, I can try later. Right now, actually, I have two devices, so I'm hearing myself.
No problem.
I'm gonna.
Thank you for your disponibility.
Okay, I'll continue. So I'll go back a bit to the idea of technology as a weapon. Where was I? Okay, so pretty much, I think I have this kind of idea that artists and designers can also use kind of technology as something that's that be used to promote humanity, instead of like those large companies and governments that are using technology to surveil people, to collect data, or to harm our privacy, or just to do something to maximize their profits. I think designers and artists can always leverage the power. Oops. You don't see anything?
No, we just see a black screen with a purple circle and an M in it. So something is going on. Yeah.
Let me reshare.
Yes. Perfect. Now we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. So basically, so I started to think about how we can kind of transform technology into something more kind of useful. So I started to kind of create this piece, like a piece by piece, because at the time I think virtual reality just emerged as a new kind of a new medium that a lot of people were trying to see it, tries to use it as a kind of a potential kind of a way to create experience. So I also started to think about Fukushima will be a good, perfect kind of example into it, because Fukushima itself is a kind of nuclear evacuation area that's not accessible from in physical in the physical space, or even it's open, that people will have a kind of a certain fear to really go into it because of the nuclear kind of waste and the nuclear kind of influence on the body. So having a virtual reality space that recreates Fukushima in a digital kind of domain will be kind of a good kind of fit. That's not just we open up a space for people to enter, but also we give people a chance to fully see what's happening there. So in this work, well, I can show a video first if the internet is okay to see.
So how did you do it, Mengyu? This effect with almost like it's drawn. Is it a something you coded? Some shader you created? Sorry, I'm so curious.
Yeah, so pretty much like for the space, it's mostly like I just modeled a lot of things and then put these models together. That was a more kind of a manual process that take lots of time to create. But also like for those abstract spaces, those are more kind of a shader works that that I use different kind of particle effects, lots of even just kind of post-processing effects to create this kind of feeling that I was experiencing at the time. But also there are like these kind of stone or like cross-like stones. They were the kind of coastline kind of objects to protect the city, but they actually failed because of the earthquake and the tsunami. But I still think that's an important thing to be there. That I also put lots of kind of voices and recordings from those interviews of the local people. If you get close to those stones, then they tell you what's happening and what's exactly the issue behind this disaster. It's not just a natural disaster, but a disaster caused by human errors, by the government and the power plant manager, that a lot of things were handled in a terrible way. So that's how people got affected. So that's a kind of a very kind of I think a very kind of useful way for me to as an investigator of the issue, but also I can, as an artist, I express lots of my own kind of feeling about it. Yeah. So that is my first kind of virtual reality kind of experience. And then I started to think about what we can do. Fukushima is a kind of, we open up a possibility that we can create a virtual kind of a space for people to be there, even though they cannot be there. Like Fukushima was a home to many people, and then they couldn't go back home. So I was thinking of, like, in the future, what if we have some kind of future virtual habitats somewhere that we can live in there and then stay. So I started to design lots of different kind of virtual spaces, using my kind of imagination to see what kind of possible kind of spaces there can be, and what kind of neighbors we will live with. So this is a kind of social VR experience that people can meet each other in these virtual spaces, but not just we can meet other people, but we have these intelligent agents that they do different kind of things in the future. If we think of like AI has gonna be more kind of commonly available in our society, not just they are the kind of servants for our business or for our kind of to support the society, but they are actually something that we can live together with. So I start to rethink this kind of symbiotic relationship that's in a virtual habitat. Different agents, they can exist. They can exist like in their home. These virtual spaces are their homes, even though like we try to also live in a digital domain, but they are the native kind of people. They are from those virtual spaces. So I start to depict different types of virtual agents to define their behaviors, to design their kind of the social structure, their ecological system. So I start to create those all these different objects, and here's a demo. So try to create a kind of a lively kind of animated these little agents. Yeah, and they can even take in form not just as a single entity, but also be part of the environment.
So do they have behaviors that you coded in?
Yeah.
And which one are the agents? Like in this image, are the agents the everything floating, or even the curved element that feel more like space I have behaviors that allow them to?
Sorry. Sorry, what's the question?
The question was if everything we see in this image is an agent with a certain behavior assigned to it, or right. Just some part is space and some part is agent, and can we interact with those agents? Means, let's say I go close to one of these, something that looks like a petal, like a rose petal. Can I grab it? Can I interact with it?
Yes. In the experience, you can actually, as a kind of, I would say, as just an audience, you can actually interact with them. You can grab pull your trigger, they'll come to you. You can attract them, so they will kind of flock around you. And if you go away, then they can just go back to their own kind of a floating or flocking status. But also they also have some kind of daily routine that they have. Some of them have this a job to collect these data blocks, and some of them they trade these data blocks, and then to formulate a kind of a simple mini economic system in there. And then some of them are these kind of lines. They adapt their shapes based on your positions in the virtual space. I was very inspired by those deployable architectures. That's those in real life. Those architectures can actually adapt their forms to change their kind of functions or shapes based on the different kind of situation and scenarios. So I think in a digital domain, these architecture-looking kind of environments can be more kind of flexible. They are more kind of intelligent, and can change their forms to make people feel different kind of feelings, give them different kind of sense of belonging or something. Yeah. Yeah, and then so the previous two virtual reality projects are more kind of my own kind of exploration on how to create a virtual space. Then I started to think of because we want to kind of tell stories, not just from the artist's perspective, but we also want people to be more engaged in those virtual spaces. So I started to kind of think about methods that people can actually leverage on to build their own kind of spaces, and maybe just an environment for them to feel kind of more comfortable with. So I try to explore some of the artificial intelligence algorithm, and then try to give this authorship to my audience, that they can actually go into a VR and then call out different objects and then create different kind of patterns on their own. It's not just that I'm defining a particular kind of a stage for them to go into my world, but they are actually creating a living space that they can feel comfortable with. But still, like there's a lot of kind of a challenge in there. So this is just a little kind of experiment. But at the same time, I'm also thinking of how we can actually be more kind of directly engaged with the community and the people. So I start to also develop kind of stories in augmented reality, that we can place different, we can bring these virtual objects and virtual agents and even the virtual environments into the physical space. And then people can experience those stories in a more kind of at a more kind of a specific contextual level, that they can place the story, enjoy it by the ocean and by the beach, in their garden. I think that's something that may be useful in the future. But at the same time, I start to collaborate with a group of another artists, very talented artists and designers. They are more kind of content creators. And then, so we decided to do a kind of an exhibition together, and then bridging kind of the virtual and the physical actual environment. So we also start to kind of collaborate on this, composing a fictional story that's based on the pop culture, consumerism, and the cultural, religious kind of icons and symbols. So I created this kind of AR app that allows the audience. Well, we first created this AR app to let all the artists' contributions be loaded into this AR app, and then we give this kind of app to the audience that they can download it on the App Store. And they can just place different characters, different objects, and scan through the environment to see those narrative moments. Because the stories is composed by many different artists, so the storyline is pretty vague, and there are a lot of kind of space of imagination. So we also let the audience to be able to kind of modify this kind of virtual environment upon the physical kind of location. They can also kind of draw different lines, different shapes into it. So that's something kind of as a kind of very kind of experiment that we were doing to make people kind of be more kind of engaged in this kind of narrative and storytelling experience. Yeah. So then I found that this is kind of fascinating, that not just the artists can create stories, but we can also invite a lot more people, even though they have no kind of expertise or experience in kind of storytelling or like making art. So I started to create this kind of AR project that's pretty much we built an AR app that lets anyone can create, view, and edit a story and then publish to a cloud space. And then other people can see your stories and then download it and then remix and then create or extend into a new kind of a type of story. So let me show a video of this. This is more kind of on the technical side, because it's more like a platform that people can use to create their own, express themselves.
You know, Mengyu, we see the same slide of eccentric nature. Is it supposed to kick in the other one?
Excuse me?
We've been seeing a slide of the piece called Eccentric Nature for a while, and I don't know if you actually showed other images and somehow it got stuck.
I think it's stuck.
Oh no! So you were showing other stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What
I should be more aware of what's going on. Let me actually go back again. Sorry, I think this is a bit not good. Yeah.
No, it's okay. We followed everything you were explaining. Oh, there it is. Got it.
Yeah. So here's the kind of artificial intelligence experience that I was talking about. We try to kind of let the audience be able to create and control what to generate and then what to build in the virtual environment. So that's something they can. It's a more like a first kind of attempt to give the authorship to the audience instead of like give the artist is in control of everything. And then also I started different kind of experiments in art in augmented reality that people can actually create and place these objects, these narrative components in their own physical space to have a more kind of stronger association between the audience, he or she herself, with the stories, instead of we are defining a totally controlled environment for them to experience. I found that's a lot of times like people enjoy that a lot when we give them kind of freedom to explore, and then they can actually be more take a more active role in the a narrative experience, because they are putting and then creating some kind of a relationship between the virtual and the physical layer. Yeah, so that was something I was talking about, and this is the kind of the stories that's created by a group of artists together. Yeah. And then like I was talking about this kind of collaborative storytelling kind of a project that's let me show the video. Hope it's catching up.
This would be amazing fun for kids, I think. I have 2 kids. They would have a blast making stories with this.
Yeah, so pretty much like the interesting part of this is people can actually work on stories created by others, even though they're not kind of they're not professional storytellers, they're not artists, but this tool still gives them kind of potential to create some kind of interesting kind of stories about their lives they can share with others. It's pretty much based on the kind of internet culture that we have a discussion board, but with the power of augmented reality that we can actually create some more kind of visual or more dynamic sequences of AR environments, and they can bring it into home and then create anywhere. So that's something, even though it's it compromised a bit on the kind of artistic side, because we are asking non-experts, non-artists to create stories, but it doesn't mean that their stories will be less kind of interesting. Instead, we found lots of creative moments that they are actually making a lot of social memes, and also express a lot of kind of sarcastic kind of stories about what's happening inside our kind of chaotic society, our controversial social political issues. Yeah.
So is this a work in progress, or is it something we can play with?
It's actually a finished product, but we didn't ship it yet because we're still in the process of publication. Right after publication, we will be able to put it on the App Store. Yeah. But the previous one, this one is on iOS Store, and I think also it's on Android Store as well. So it's called Aura. Yeah.
Can I ask you something, Mr. Chen?
Yes.
I was really interesting about your different approach about virtual reality. You changed the paradigm about human physicality in virtual space. Mm-hmm. Because you rewrite, you define an entire new world with different metaphor and not the usually low resolution digital reality as a reproposition of the real reality. But in your last project, you show a different way of perceive ourselves in the virtual world as a data, as a abstract object in an abstract world. I hope it was enough clear.
I think the internet wasn't very good. I missed some part of the story of the questions.
Hai capito, Enrica, cosa volevo intendere?
What Manuel is saying is that you are oftentimes, before you came, Mengyu, I was talking about how it's difficult because a lot of people in VR tend to imitate the real world. And Manuel is saying how he finds it absolutely fascinating that you create these world in which people can understand more about themselves and are even there is authorship in those worlds, but all the components are these abstract elements. So he finds that your approach is really innovative and fascinating in many ways. I don't know if he has a question, but he wanted to point out how you have a very different approach than the rest of the world.
Right. I think it's more about like thinking of the kind of a new symbiotic relationship between the human and these digital agents, right? If we think of the technology is gonna go advance into a future that different kind of intelligent forms will appear, and especially if we our virtual space can be connected with more physical domains, a lot of different entities can be part of this network. So I think one of my next projects is like we try to kind of also link quantum computers with a digital kind of space creation. Not just this tool is designed to kind of support another kind of for people to create stories in virtual reality, but at the same time, it's we are bridging these quantum particles because it's a quantum computer that we can link to. So we have kind of interaction with those quantum physics kind of particles, and they behave differently than we perceive the kind of the logic. Especially in quantum computing, there's a kind of this phenomena of called entanglement. That it's regardless of the kind of cause and effect relationship, but we can actually create a more kind of entangled relationship between two different agents. That's these quantum particles are kind of hard to predict. They have a probability of flipping into a certain state, but depending on where action entry starts, the results will usually be very different. So each kind of agent can have a multiple states at the same time, instead of like we are defining one particular state on top of it. We can have, the more agents we are having, the more kind of states it can have, especially when we introduce the real quantum computing computer in there, and each agent can be represented and depicted by a physical particle in the world. So that bridges the virtual and the physical together, that we can have a much more kind of interesting relationship in this digital domain. Yeah.
Now, are these agents capable of changing those moods, you know, the happy, the sad, based on the interaction with the participant of the experience? Means, can these agents react?
Yes. So if we think of, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can totally hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I think the interesting part is, like, we talked about this the symbiotic relationship. Not just the audience have the control over those actions on these agents, but agent to agent themselves, they act same as the audience, right? So we can do the same. They can do the same thing as what we can do. If we can touch an agent, then another virtual agent can also touch our target agent again in the same time, in the same way. So this creates a kind of equality or equal relationship within all the participants of this virtual network, and the humans are not just a superior existence in this network, but is part of this network and enjoying the same kind of equal rights. Yeah, even though like we are kind of the creator of this network, but we can give our rights to those virtual agents so that they have the same kind of power. There will be less kind of it will be interesting power dynamics, but also kind of create a more kind of explore a new kind of social political ecosystem in this virtual domain.
Yeah, it comes to mind that beautiful piece you have called "Money, Poetry, and Proletariat." That has really an incredible metaphor about society and how ultimately all kind of there is an invisible hand controlling everything. It's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. Now, I have one question before I want everybody to ask questions, but I've been eager to ask you this. So have you done any testing of these? For example, when you built the Money, Poetry, Proletariat, I know you did a lot of work in figuring out all the different agents' behaviors or let's say personalities. Now, did you try when someone was experiencing that piece to find out if they understood what was going on in terms of if it was exactly what you had planned or if they gave it different meanings to it? Means you do any testing to see which meaning people give to these agents and to these behaviors?
Right, I think it's a very good question. I think as an outsider of this network, even for me, like I when I was watching my own work, a lot of times like I cannot really predict their behaviors.
Wow.
Because they are so autonomous, and the algorithm that's running, driving their behaviors are unpredictable. So as an outsider, we sometimes don't really know what's going on. But I think what would be interesting is if we can also be part of this network. That's why I start to create these kind of tools or like real-time tools that the participants can actually join this network and interact with those agents to directly see what's their responses, to interrupt them maybe, or like be part of it, do the same thing, give the same kind of the power to do the same thing, so that it will let people have a better kind of idea of what's happening. And especially, I think the kind of aesthetic moment comes from this kind of interaction, the action in movements. So when the audience is actually doing something, they understand what's happening in a better way. Instead of we are always have a kind of a guard view, watching, observing what's happening. I think if we can go inside and then be part of it, then it's actually a more kind of immersive experience. That's the same idea of having virtual reality as an immersive media.
Yeah, I love that in your pieces there is this non-prescriptive. My point is not all determined by the creator. Is actually an alive creature that keeps changing. I think that's incredibly unique. I want to let other people ask questions before I ask my other. I have a bunch, but I want to make sure to give room to everyone. Does anybody have any questions about Mengyu's work?
Enrica.
Sì.
Hi, okay. I try in English, but if I can speak very well, please translate.
I will.
I want to ask to Mengyu. Mengyu, hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I'm Daniele Rossi. I teach virtual reality representation here in University of Camerino, and I bet the most of our audience is made of students. They are so curious about some technical stuff regarding your work. So, which kind of software do you use to 3D model your work and something like that?
Yeah, I think I use a kind of pipeline that I use Maya, and then for some kind of detail work, I sometimes use Blender to do kind of sculpture, a particular kind of agents or particular shape to do more kind of detail works. And then I export the models into a substance designer for material attaching to create a more kind of a better kind of visual kind of effects, and then import into Unity to create the whole kind of dynamic system. And at the same time, I build plugins for my own in Unity to create different kind of agent behaviors. So the tool you're seeing here is actually a plugin that I built in Unity. It's a visual programming tool that people can use to quickly prototype a virtual space, and also including the interactions. Yeah, so you can in real time you can move around and then see how different things are behaving. Yeah.
And this is some particular reasons why you use Unity rather than Unreal, for example?
I don't see too much difference. I am just personally into Unity. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just easier to build plugins. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in Italy they use. Do you remember, Mengyu, when I came to Marco's class that I told you guys I don't know Unity, I know Unreal.
Right.
I think in Italy they use Unreal a little bit more. But you're right, it's not.
No.
No, is it equal?
It's just,
is it used equal?
Because probably Unreal it's easier for.
Sorry, I cannot hear.
Some model. Unity is more for computer scientists, I think. But
yeah, they kind of think Unreal is for artists and Unity is for computer scientists. Yeah, I don't know if it's true. Because I know a lot of artists using Unity. So Mengyu, I think, is more of, I guess, Mengyu, are you an artist or a computer scientist? What do you consider yourself?
Good question.
Did you hear me, Mengyu? Mengyu, can you hear me?
I think the audio was discontinuous. So it was,
yeah. I was asking if you consider yourself more of an artist or a computer scientist.
I think I try to define artists in a different way, right? Artists are always kind of changing themselves and try to evolutionize different things. And I think the most important is like the purpose of being an artist. If we are making impact, creating something that's useful and creative, and do something other people cannot do. Especially as I said, I like the idea that technology as a weapon to do the things those large companies and governments fail to do. If artists are not doing it, I don't think any other people will be doing those works, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm writing it down. I like that idea. Any other questions?
Any
So
question?
I want to ask you something really quick. So one of my projects in VR, I actually had a very abstract world, a little bit like you do, with a lot of primary shapes. And I created there is a way that you can basically request to Facebook to release the photos of the user of the experience or the participant of the experience, obviously as long as that participant agrees. So what it started to happening in the space is at first it was very, very abstract. And then as long as the participant, when he or she entered, had authorized it, a lot of these images from their Facebook feed started populating the space and making it very personal, in quote. And that kind of came to my mind when you showed us one of your pieces in which you were talking how you wanted to give the participant authorship over the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one question I have for you is, I noticed though that your world stay away. My problem in that piece was I wanted to have something called telepresence in which there were two participants and I was trying to create two avatars that were somehow a stylized version of the humans, and they were actually crashing instead of helping that abstract world. Another one of my failure, I always joke that I do a lot of failing before I get anything right. But I noticed you stay away from human representation. Is there intentional? I would imagine so, but can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sorry, the question wasn't clear.
The question was, in your pieces, I noticed that you stay away from human representation. In fact, there is one piece, I think, in which you have something that looks a little human, but is all made out of voxels, and it's called biometric visceral interface. But are you intentionally staying away from humans, no matter if they're represented in a more abstract or more kind of like stylized way? I mean, there aren't very humans in your pieces, right?
Right. I think I'm just simply thinking of the potential of virtual reality, that we already have a physical reality that's very stressful. A lot of bad news every day from this social political environment. Why do we want to have exactly the same copy of it? A virtual space is somewhere we try to find a new path to the future. So we also try to imagine how human can take in a new form and then live in it. So I'm mostly kind of trying to just explore some new kind of a way of representation. I'm still like within our kind of understandable or perceptible kind of domain. That I don't want to go too far that people cannot really understand what's happening. So it's something in between. We can go radical to totally transform the way we represent a human, but we still need to be kind of realistic, that the audience need to be able to embody themselves and then also have a good kind of ownership of their body in virtual reality. Otherwise, I think this link of empathy will be broken.
Yeah, that's why I was asking that question, because I was curious, how do you make the sense of presence or the embodiment really happen if you're making a human that is very abstracted? Also, another thing that I noticed in pieces in which the humans are completely missing or they're completely different is that sometimes you feel lonely in those spaces. You have these vast, incredibly beautiful, abstract spaces, but after a while you start feeling like you kind of don't want to be there. Have you ever thought about that?
Right, that's why I try to make all my work kind of a social VR or sociable, that you have some kind of a connection with other people. It's a kind of community building in a virtual domain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever done any telepresence in which multiple people pitch into the space?
Yeah, the Eccentric Nature has a social VR version for the kind of last year's Currents exhibition. It was a more kind of simple version, but we had a kind of good time, have people hanging out in the space and then chat in real time. So that's a different kind of experience, having only yourself inside VR.
Yeah. I look forward to that really happening, because I feel like it would it would be a new world to discover. I don't think is there yet. Does anybody else have questions?
Sorry, Enrica.
Si.
To talk with Mengyu. Mengyu, I saw that in your website there is a section dedicated to your work like designer, right?
Objects, right? The objects?
Yes.
No, object, yeah.
Furniture designer or interaction design. Can you talk about that just for a while, in order to explain your works and how it reacts with your VR artist works?
The interaction design part or the objects? I kind of missed that part.
Oh yes, if they interact in some way, interactive works and object and furniture works.
Okay. Yeah. In my early times, I was even these days, I'm very interested in kind of creating these smart objects or interactive objects in real. I always want to kind of have people play with or interact with those things that doesn't exist, but also they behave in a non-conventional ways. So I built these kind of electronics or robots or different kind of devices that try to see how people may respond to them. A lot of them are more like a social experience. Some of them are like a performance that just to test out how people, when they are encountering something that behaves unexpectedly, how they're gonna react to it. So I did lots of these kind of devices. And they're kind of interesting, more like an exploration to explore the kind of relationship between human and objects, those kind of interactive objects. I see them as a very early prototype of my agents in those virtual reality. In virtual reality, we can program a lot more behaviors and expressiveness on those objects. In physical, it will be kind of different and challenge. But I think the perception toward those objects will also be different, because the kind of physicality and the material reality that that those objects have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last question, then I'm going to let other people ask. Really quick, actually. The piece that I mentioned earlier, the biometric visceral interface, you were actually tracking real time the biometric signal of the participant to trigger or alter the user's body awareness, self-body awareness. Can you tell me, what did you learn from that? Means from tracking the from sensing the data of the body of the participant. What was the outcome of that piece? What did you learn?
I think that's the major kind of inspiration for my next work to explore on the relationship between different entities, because it's a constant and real-time dynamic changing relationship. That's the more kind of we see these objects or these visual expressions, the more kind of our bodies start to react to it. But also at the same time, while our body is reacting more, the visuals also change. So it's a constant kind of interactive, I would say, if I'm using the term from a feminist theorist, Karen Barad. She's talking about this idea of interaction, that our reality happens after all the interactions. So at each kind of moments by moments, it's an accumulation of these micro interactions. So that's something I found very interesting, and that's also a way to look at our world. Every of our interactions with others is changing both our kind of the reality on each side.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm fascinated with too, but I'm not sure where to go with it. So I was curious where you're going, but it looks like you're exploring as well. That's awesome. Anybody else has questions? We have asked so many questions. Poor Mengyu. Thank you for being so patient and clear, especially.
Thank you. It's the internet glitch is a bit kind of crazy, but I hope everybody was able to kind of hear me clearly. Yeah,
we did. We got to pick your brain a whole lot. A lot of inspirations for me. Means a lot of things come to mind that make me want to explore new paths. Very innovative. I'm really impressed.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to coming to Santa Barbara at one of the end of the year show and experiencing some of this, because seeing it on the screen is not good enough, really. It's actually a bummer.
Yeah.
So I think we can actually, I don't know if we can close early if the questions are done, but we probably can. We had another about 25 minutes if we wanted them, but I'm just curious because actually the Italians have been on another talk before ours. So they started 3 hours ago almost. So they're probably pretty tired. And isn't it almost 7 o'clock there or something like that? What time is it? Yeah, it's almost 7 p.m. over there. So this is, by the way, the Unicam. Daniele Rossi is my advisor in my Italian PhD and is teaching, as he mentioned, virtual reality. So he was really happy of you coming and being able to chat with you. So thank you so much for this amazing talk. Does anybody else want to tell anything to Mengyu, or can we close it early, Manuel?
There are no problems.
Okay.
It's okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you,
Sounds
Mr.
good.
This interesting presentation, and we are sorry about the technical issue.
Yeah, but
it's okay. Yes, thank you.
We managed.
We could have other chance to speak together and match our PhD research. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here to present my work to everyone here.
Thank you, Mengyu.
I might write on this, but I might need to ask you more things. But yeah, we'll connect on that. I want to write a whole lot about this presentation, but there's so much to tell. So thank you, Mengyu. Thank you, Unicam, for listening. If you guys don't have any more questions, I think it's time for a walk and dinner time, whatever it is. And enjoy your student in person, Daniele. You're lucky. We're still all virtual here. We're way behind Italy. It's funny to think of America behind Italy, right? But it is. When I came to America, I want to leave the Italian with this great story. When I came to America, one of my 2000 or whatever, one of my students, one of my first students, said, "Oh, you're Italian. You're 2 steps ahead of us." And I said, "What? 2 steps ahead of us? What do you mean?" He said, "You guys have public health and public education. You're 2 steps ahead of us." And I was like, wow. Now, Mengyu, you're from China, right?
Right.
How is it in China? How is health and education? Is it public, or is it like in America where you pay an arm and a leg for it?
Are you asking public health or education?
Yeah, is education and health public? That means funded by the government and accessible to everyone, or not?
Couldn't hear.
I was curious if you have public health and public education in China.
I think everything's mostly public.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, yeah, private is not a big portion in the whole system. Yeah.
Cool. But I was kind of proud in that moment in which the American kid told me, "You guys are 2 steps ahead of us." I really felt proud of being Italian. I thought, yes, yes. So let's end on this beautiful note and thank everyone. I'm so happy that I had this chat. It's always inspiring to have exchanges. We should do it more often.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. All the best for your PhD.
And thank you.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Buonasera a tutti, e riposto il registro per le presenze che dovete fermare dall'inizio e fine seminario. Quindi vi lascio qualche minuto per connettervi e possiamo salutarci. Grazie per la vostra partecipazione. Grazie mille Enrica per l'interessante seminario. Grazie
Anche a te, Manuel.
professor Rossi per la partecipazione.
Grazie a voi, grazie a voi.